which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Angie and Erica are not here tonight, and I think Jess was going to be here, but she's got some period where she's not going to be here, so I could have misremembered. Anyway, 4 of us is just peachy keen. So we don't have any alternates to appoint. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting on April 21st. Do I have a motion for that? Moved by Ms. DiPietro. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Madsen. Any comments? My only comment is, Jane, did you write the minutes? They were good.
Thank you.
I had you on hold there, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Anyway, all in favor, please raise your hand. 4-0. Okay. Is there any public comments before we get going on the meeting? Well, you'll have your, I'm sure you'll think of something at some point, Kevin. Okay. Next on the agenda is the findings of fact and conclusions of law for Mill Ridge subdivision.
Good evening.
Perfect timing. So this is the final. And
Yeah, I'm going to close this door because it's final, you know, it's hot
Yeah.
out there and it's cool in here.
yeah, makes sense. Thank you. Modifications from the preliminary plan are in red in this plan. And I propose, like last time, the last thing we did, to just leave it there because it makes it easier for everybody to follow on one document instead of 2. So are there any comments, changes?
There's just on page 2, there's la twice.
Page 2, there's what?
3rd paragraph,
Yep.
4th line, 5th line down, it says after la.
Oh, the. Maybe my granddaughter was talking to me. Okay. If there are no other changes, I'd accept a motion to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
So moved.
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Mr. Madsen. Any further discussion?
I never get in there in time.
All in favor, please raise your hand.
Yep.
And I've already signed the document, so you all can sign it next. And we'll be done.
Yeah.
Okay. I did ask for public comments.
Yeah.
Already, but-
I don't, yeah, I looked at the proposed revisions to the cluster zone, we talked about it just briefly. Don't want you guys to really talk about that.
Okay, great. All right. So we'll move on to the housing legislation. So let me just explain a little bit about what's in your OneDrive. I know a lot of it went in there late. That's kind of on me. I was making changes up to the last minute yesterday. So the first thing in there, so it's under the 5/19/26 workshop, and they're numbered just to make it easier to find what we're going to do. The first one, with the housing legislation application, that's a set of tables, and that'll be one of the primary things we'll be doing today, or at least that's the plan. The second one is the housing presentation I gave to the CDAC 3 weeks ago or so. That can be referenced, obviously, but it has there's some duplication of that in item 1. 2A is just if we want to refer to it when we're talking, because we will talk about the inner quarter today. And this research may be helpful, it may not be, but if you recall, when we were looking at lot sizes and potentially changing them in the rural neighborhood, Brenda was able to get us a download of every lot in the town by district, and with the owner and the lot size. And I took those and sorted them so that they were sorted by district in order from smallest to largest lot. And then, so 2A is just a histogram of the lots in the inner quarter and their sizes.
Just
Which you've seen before.
clarifying question, this is from 2023?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, I don't think there's been too many lot splits in the inner quarter, so the owners may have
When
changed.
did you put that one in?
That didn't get in there till
3
later,
hours
like 3
ago.
o'clock or something. So,
Okay.
yeah. It was just one of those things, I remember we had it from the past, and I thought it might be helpful. But it might not be helpful. Then we have it says the 2025 comp plan land use maps. We're not going to follow these maps, but the comp plan will be voted on in about a month, a little less than a month. And I think with some of the districts, as we apply the housing laws, we just want to be cognizant of what might change when the comp plan is approved. Although we'll talk about it, I don't think we should bite off more than we can chew. Let's put it that way. And then there's item number 4 is just definitions that were put together by Ashley and I that we think probably are going to be needed. And we don't have to go over that today. We can just keep adding to it. So that's for your reference, just if you think things should be added, or while we're working, if we think of something. Then number 5 is the subdivision draft approval round 1. That's the result of Eric and I sitting down for several hours and discussing cluster housing, basically. Then the final short-term licensing ordinance is in there. This isn't really for, this is essentially meant to be the final draft to go to the select board. What I would say, if you have a big objection, and then we will get that objection to Brenda, who's been charged with writing this. But she's incorporated our input. And then last in there is just the timeline for the affordable housing amendments. That's the work plan, which I couldn't find last time we met on this, which is basically this. So we are on May 19th right now. And we're supposed to be discussing the requirements of the new housing laws, land use policy direction, develop an overall set of goals for amending it, question list. So we've done some of that already. And then, yeah, that's everything. So, so why don't we, any questions on any of that? Here is just
Share a message.
what? Oh, no, I didn't, but I might have my phone.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't. Construction traffic. Yeah, I didn't hear my phone for some reason. All right, so, want to just dive in with item one? Okay. So this is, some of, the first few pages are from my presentation, and they capture two major parts of the law, and then the rest of it are tables that are by district, which Ashley put together and I edited, which hopefully kind of give us a guide of what has to be done in each district. Not all districts are in there yet. We still have work to do on the other districts. So anyway, so for the new laws, this first chart, it lists the growth area, whether there's public water and sewer, the current lot size, and the minimum lot size that we'll have to go to. One of the districts missing on here is the mixed-use corridor, which is not a growth area, does not have public water and public sewer, and is got the same requirements as the outer quarter, 80, or the rural neighborhood, 80,000 square feet. So it would, as it stands today, it would be similar to the rural neighborhood in terms of lot sizes. We'll get into that a little bit more. And, you know, then you can see there's a question at the bottom here about subdivision lot sizes. It's, and I put this question to the Housing Opportunity Program folks, Hillary Gove. It's unclear how, they've given us some guidelines on subdivision, but what they haven't said is if your subdivision lot sizes are bigger than the district lot size, must you follow the district? I think the answer is yes, but I don't know. So we put that question forward. So you can see where the big impacts are in terms of lot size. Any questions about any of this? Outer quarter, there's really only one lot with water and sewer. So that lot would have different rules. And I believe that's the lot that you own. That lot has water and sewer connected to it, right? And it ends after that
Yeah,
lot.
there's, I think the chiropractor also has an additional lot here.
Yeah, they're in the inner quarter
Oh, they
though.
are, okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't impact, but I don't think the drive-in has, no.
So the
So,
sewer stuff comes from my lot, and the water's on mine going up Sandy Creek.
yeah. So that one lot would be eligible for a lot size of 10,000. Obviously, it's 15 acres, so easily meets that. Any questions, observations? All right. And you can see where the biggest change is, which is in the inner quarter. So that, just for people listening, that would go to, since it's completely served by water and sewer, public water and public sewer, the minimum lot size would go from 40,000 to 5,000 across the district. All right. The next page is the allowance of multiple dwellings on a lot. So if it's not in a growth area and it doesn't have public water or sewer, then you can have 3 dwelling units on a lot, but that includes an ADU. So, and if you're in a growth area or you're served by public water and public sewer, one of those two, then you can have 4 dwelling units on a lot. That includes an ADU. So in these cases, different from what the law says about an ADU as concerns, for instance, a subdivision, in this case, ADU counts as a dwelling unit. So you can't have 4 dwelling units plus an ADU. You can have 3 dwelling units plus an ADU. So that will have to be captured somehow, probably in I suspect, a footnote, but we'll see. And then the subdivision provision, any questions about any of that?
It's pretty straightforward.
Yep. Getting it into the ordinance is going to be the fun part. And then the subdivision provision. Subdivision, the biggest change is the division of a new structure into 3 or more units. So if you have one building with 3 units in it, that triggers subdivision, or did trigger subdivision. With the new law, it's 5 units in a single building. So the code enforcement officer can approve up to 4 units in a single building. 3 lots, however, if you divide something into 3 lots or more, that still triggers subdivision. And if you put 3 individual houses on one lot, that still triggers subdivision. It's just when you're doing something in one building. Any questions about that? Brenda, you're going to get to approve more buildings if they're built. And there's some exclusions. All right, on to the district summaries. So first one is the Downtown Village Business District. That's a growth area. The entire district served by public water and public sewer. I think most of you know where it is. It's Main Street and associated streets like up Depot Street and others. So one comment on use allowances. I mean, residential is allowed in every district. So we shouldn't have any issues with having to allow residential in a commercial-only district because we don't have any commercial-only districts. Okay. There's no change to requiring that dwellings need to be on the second floor for downtown. That's still allowed. And I did double check that with the Housing Opportunity Program. Daycare facilities must now be allowed wherever residential is allowed. And they're not allowed in that district currently. So, so I guess the question is, will they only be allowed on the second floor of a building? Because that's the only place residential is allowed. I don't know. But we ought to we maybe ought to just change the use chart to say they're allowed. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I just think
I
they're,
have somebody coming to the planning board meeting to address that, because they were not happy that they can't have daycare in certain areas.
Well, they still can't until June of '27, but
But she did come in and had concerns that the limited areas that allow daycares and the need person has for them.
yeah, I think it's not allowed
It's not allowed downtown.
it's not allowed downtown.
Which
Not
is
allowed in mixed use
pretty
areas.
wild.
It's not allowed.
Why does that?
It's not allowed in DVN, I don't think. I'm not, let me all look right now.
I think that's a great
Hold on.
change. I think it should just be there, no allowed, doesn't matter if it's the first floor or the second floor, because it could be a business on
Say
the
that
first.
again?
I think we should just change it to being allowed,
Yeah.
not whether it's the
Across
first
the
floor or
whole,
second floor.
and not worry about the
Yeah.
complicating factors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Is that everybody good with that strategy?
Yeah, I think if there are any safety concerns with children falling downstairs, that'll be covered probably by
Yeah,
the state in another area.
and if you allow it, so we don't have to tie it to residential it's just that we have to include it if, in a district where there is residential, so it could be on the first floor, or the second floor. It's,
I think you'd rather have a daycare downtown than in a rural.
where did it go? Daycare
DVB
facility, it's not allowed in DVB 1 or DVB 2 or downtown village neighborhood, so it has to be allowed in all of those areas now. So that's a change. And then on the use allowances, we have to change authorities. There's a section that tells you what the CEO does and what we do, that has to be changed. Any other questions on that first page? I did ask HOP, because the lot size here is 2,500 square feet. And you're supposed to allow 1,250 square foot per unit. And their comment was, at 2,500 square feet, that means you're allowing 2 units on that property, if it is 2,500 square feet, not 4 units. I think when they wrote the law, they didn't think people had lot sizes that small. So a proposal here is, so the way the law is written is for the first 4 dwelling units, it has to be 1,200 square 50 feet per dwelling unit. However, after 4 dwelling units, you can specify it needs to be more. What I put down here, and just want the board to discuss, is do we want to have some kind of tiered structure that says 1,250 feet for the first 4 dwelling units, and after that you have to go to whatever the minimum is in the district. For instance, here it would be 5,000 square feet or something, or 2,500 square feet. Or do we just keep it simple, do 1,200, do it regardless of the lot size? So if somebody has a lot size downtown that's 3 acres, then they can do, I don't know, divide 1,250 into 120,000. That's a lot of homes. On the other hand, so what we could also look at the data for this particular.
I think for me, visuals would be helpful, because I think that's the impact. That's what will be. And just imagining different, like, building typologies and I don't know, I was looking for it. I know in some guidance about one of the laws, there were
Say again?
some visual breakdowns of, like, this is what this many units on this size lot.
I'm trying to think
Not
about.
being articulate, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how that might be done.
It's gonna have to
Yeah.
be a multi-story building.
yeah, we're talking like
Yeah.
Portland.
You're talking
3.
35 units an
It is. And
But if you have a height limit.
in that district, the height would still be 35 feet. So this 14 feet that can be added, that's in a district, that's only for an affordable housing development as defined by the state. It's not for any residential development. So downtown village business district 1. We might want to also look at how many lots are actually built on. But there's a lot of small lot, I'm looking at it now. There's some large lots, but they're like Hannaford's. There's some that are small, like .2, and even smaller. In fact, most of them are less than an acre, the vast majority. But as Mark says, you can put 35 on there. The school has a bunch of acres, LEA has a bunch of acres, the town has a bunch of acres, Heathrow Corporation, what's that? Heathrow Corporation? These are all built on, that's 295 Main Street. So, all right, so let's try to get, I don't know if we could get visuals, but we could probably figure out impact somehow, depending on 2,500 multiplied 10 times 10 gives you a little bit more than a half acre.
Heathrow Corporation is Food City.
Is what?
Food City.
Oh, okay. And, yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that? So the bottom line is we want more analysis before jumping straight to 2,500 after 4 units. Okay? Residential parking. The recommendation is to meet the law, to explicitly write out in the code that dwelling units are 1 space per unit maximum. It wouldn't apply to anything else, just to residential parking. And affordable housing would still be 1 unit for every 2 dwelling units, I think it is, or 2, it's either 2 for 3 or 1 for 2, I
2
can't
for
remember.
3.
All right, so that would have to be written into a section, it wouldn't be in site, well, it needs to be in site plan in case we do a building with 5 or more apartments, but it probably needs to go. So Brenda, if you were looking at the code, where would you put that? Would you put it in the space and bulk standards? Where would you put that? If somebody comes to you and they want to they're going to have an apartment building with 3 dwelling units in it, and the requirement would be no more than, they get 3 parking spaces. Should it go in the building code?
I usually when I look for anything to do with parking, I go to the land use section.
To the, okay.
And, because it usually, like under each district, it has what size parking entrances and stuff. I don't know. I don't know where the best place.
Parking's
Never had
always
that
been
in
something
here
that we've been
before.
wanting to deal with.
What's that?
We've always wanted to deal with parking more than we have.
Yeah. Well, state.
And
You know what I'm
it's
talking?
interesting because all the laws just keep changing every year.
What's the logic of making a maximum of 1 parking space per unit.
Parking takes up a lot of space, and so you're actually allowing for more density. Minimum,
I
large
think- I
minimum
think
parking
the-
requirements create
think-
sprawl.
And
I'm a fan of that.
correct,
one
you're
spot.
correct about that, but,
I think that's fine when you have public transportation, but you don't have that here. I
yeah,
mean,
so,
I think there's a good chance you may have more than 1 car per dwelling unit.
well, we can't, that would be okay. We can't
You can't make it.
We can't dictate it, okay?
Okay.
So if somebody comes to us and they're gonna have five apartments in one building, we can't say you need to have 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, even if each of those dwelling units has 2 bedrooms. We can't. Now, if the developer, because, it makes sense, wants to do it, they can. But I think the reason the law was written that way is so that the municipality can't write standards to essentially block people from putting more dwelling units on a lot. So you can do it, we can't demand it. Is that,
I hate it, just, I don't think that's very practical. If you have 5 units, so you can have 1 to 5 spaces, when the reality is, you may have guests that come over, you may have visitors, whatever you're gonna.
yeah. Well, I think the developer would have to, whoever's building it would have to consider that. I mean, it's something we could certainly suggest to them,
Yeah,
but
no,
we can't.
I didn't understand the
Yeah.
logic.
I mean, I think it means less regulation, right? So,
So actually, it's under bulk standards, the district-specific space and bulk standards, because it goes to each district and it has driveway and parking lot.
Yeah, those don't apply to subdivision though, and do you use those for residential? I don't, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Under each section, just for example, like, we've used them in subdivision though, because it's under. the
Subdivision
land
says we can't use those standards.
use, But we use it.
But we
use it
have-
under the land use.
Yeah, we use them for land use, right?
So like, one of them is garage and parking, and it tells you all parking lots must be set back a minimum of 15 feet. It has a different
Right.
standard than, the setback.
Well, it could go in there, or it might be able to go in the building code section since it's only for residential.
can I ask a
Yeah.
zoom out logistics question? I know Ashley is connecting with GPCOG about their proposal to do a lot of this work. My understanding is that if we work with them, they figure all this out? Like where in each place? Is that true, or did I misinterpret?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
I looked at the proposal. I've got some concerns because it's going to be handed to us the way it reads, and Ashley and I have to discuss this, and you all have it in there, so you're welcome to comment. It sounds like we get a deliverable in November, and that's too late. It's
thought-
not, to me, it's too late. We won't end up owning it, let's put it that way. That's my concern, is if we get something by the end of November, and there's issues, because they're working off on their thing, and that doesn't mean they won't be interfacing with us, but there's nothing built into that schedule about workshops. It's a it's a presentation at the end, and I just have some concerns that that's not going to give us a lot of control, and I think we probably need it. So we need to talk to them about it. And I don't know that they're going to do things like what you, I think somebody like Barry Dunn would do what you've asked for, the pictorial on
Well,
things.
that's
I don't
something
think GP Cog will.
That's just for my own understanding.
Well, I think what we can do is we go through this is, and if they're studying our ordinance, is ask the questions as to their, where would it best fit?
And
how are other places handling it?
Attorney too, so they'll probably correct it if it's not in a
Right.
location, because otherwise. put it together and then.
But yeah, we haven't quite figured out exactly what, if we're gonna use GP cog, what they're gonna do for us. So, it may be more of getting them to give us technical assistance on stuff as opposed to delivering to us some what is a finished document. So, that's my comment on that. All right, let's keep going. So we need a place for it. Planning board trigger, I already talked about. And then there's intent alignment. Doesn't seem like there needs to be any change, other than we need to look at, will allowing the kind of density we're talking about cause an issue. But it can only be on the second floor in DVB1, so I really don't think it's an issue there, now that I think about it. I mean, well, Mark's right, somebody could build a 35-foot high building in the top two, but it's hard for me to imagine, but, all right. DVB2. Jessica, I think you live in DVB2.
Maybe?
Food City to Kansas Road? Or are you
Yep.
after
Nope.
Kansas
Yeah, I'm
Road?
before Kansas Road. Yep.
You're before?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the comp plan or the intent of the district calls us a transition from downtown commercial to downtown residential. Same comments about daycare site plan review. Minimum lot size has to go from 20,000 to 5,000, so that has to be changed. And same thing about the 1,250 square feet per unit. For the first four, I'm going to assume that people want to do the same thing with this district that we did with the other district. Okay. Parking, it's the same situation. Planning board trigger is the same situation. In terms of the intent stated in the current comprehensive plan, I don't think it's much different in the new one, is to maintain the historic pattern and mixed uses, walkability, and support the village character of the town. So, these are my thoughts, that the smaller lot size might lead to higher density development and lot splits. That maybe we should look at mitigations for that, because that's a pretty big jump from 20,000 to 5,000. Buffers, whatever. Restrictions that don't get around the law. Any thoughts on any of that? So, in terms of lot sizes in that district,
I mean, those are all still what I consider, not entirely maybe, but like walkable to
Yeah.
town. Especially the ones on 117, like north of the light.
yeah. So, it's a pretty small district, to be honest. Looking at this, the number of lots in this district, it looks like it's one of the smallest districts. it probably is the smallest district. Maybe one of the, maybe like North Bridgton is smaller, but this is a pretty small district. I think. Actually, just gotta look at that. Look at the comp plan. Okay, there we go. So, downtown village business district 1 is 133 acres. Doesn't tell you the number of lots, but it's more than 133 lots. It's like 500 or 600. Downtown village business district 2 is 50 acres. That's the whole district. So, it's a pretty small district. So, anything else on that?
That area is served by sewer, like all those lots have sewer access. So,
Yes.
Yes, they do. It ends where the food pantry is. So it actually gets into the next district.
yeah, the second map in the new maps from the comp plan, I know they don't mean anything, but that has the sewer outline on it, and it's very helpful.
Are you talking about the new maps?
Yeah, on the second page and the one in our, for that reason, I think I need to think about it more, but I'm not necessarily opposed to opportunities for small, like more density along
Yeah.
those corridors.
So you're saying you don't necessarily want to increase the amount of land required after you get beyond 4 dwelling units. So there's no choice. There's no choice for the first 4 dwelling units. It's 1,250. After the first 4 dwelling units, the board can make a tiered structure if you want to.
Can we make the requirement be that they're all converted farmhouses?
If we had a form base.
We can certainly look at the height requirement. There's nothing that would stop us from, if you want to retain it to have a more village-type requirement, you could look at the height requirement, which is currently 35 feet. So that would allow, 3 stories? I'm asking the builder and the
Yeah,
crowd.
with a flat roof, and 3 stories with a pitch roof.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but isn't it the medium of the pitched roof? Is that how you determine the height?
I'm not sure how you.
I think that's the way you do it, Mark.
we go from the grade, the original grade, highest grade, or, lowest grade to the highest point.
Yeah, I thought it was the highest, so it'd be the peak of the roof, it's pitch. Well, I guess Brenda can tell us. Brenda?
I can barely hear.
I think if the water's slow, you.
Yeah, we need to speak up, gang.
I don't know.
I think if it's a flat-
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, it'd have to be flat.
Around to the peak,
It's
if
a
it's a
big
slow
room.
lot, you would think the median, the grade of the lot, so
Median, average mean grade.
the.
Yeah. So I don't think this land use map for downtown Village 2 changes much, if at all. I mean, what we could do is say you need, this is in site plan, but it's, if it's a residential thing or a subdivision, that's different, so say if it's five apartments in a building. You could say it has to have a pitched roof. You could say that it, if you don't want it to be, if it has a pitched roof, it's not going to be 3 stories.
Unless you put dormers in.
So So two things that could be done is pitched roof and evaluate whether the height should be lower. I don't think there's anything in that district that's 35 feet high. The church steeple may be 35 feet high, but that's allowed
In one or two, or both?
in two. In one, there's definitely 35-foot high buildings. I don't think that's such a small district. I don't think there's, the highest building is probably the Vineyard Church. And then building that you've rehabbed and
Yeah.
that Susan Menard has rehabbed down the street. I don't think there's anything higher than 2 stories there. Maybe 2 stories with a dormer.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to say 30 feet and avoid a 3-story building, that could be done, and that would preserve that as an extension of the downtown. Certainly a pitched roof would.
Is anyone building flat roofs?
I'm not ideally.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, commercial buildings, more so.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
But there are
I'm
commercial buildings allowed there, so.
Oh, so then, yeah, definitely. We should, yeah, I'm for the density, but we should be mindful of the character of the village.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where and I thought it existed, but I really can't find it. The visual, I think, could be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, a visual of different building types that could go in small lot sizes. Yeah.
I don't know how hard that is.
Well, put that in there. Should we have a set of pre-approved design plans? Which
Yeah.
actually would be more efficient, I think, for the developer, as
For
well as the
everybody.
board.
Yeah, definitely, we should look into it and consider it for the town.
I mean, it's not that, wouldn't say that you would be restricted to only those, but if you're doing those, then that's
Quicker
steps.
approval, yeah.
You skip the review essentially, or similar. Okay, and I'll look at the lot sizes and see if there's, actually, I'll put it in the OneDrive so everybody can look at it, and you can sort it. It's an Excel sheet or whatever. You can sort it however you want, and it has the owners there. So. All right. Okay, on to the next one. So, inner quarter, right now, the entire district is served by public sewer and public water. So it goes right now from the other side of Willett Road, so where the Paris Farmers Union starts, all the way to excuse me, not where the Paris Farmers Union starts, where the CMP is, and goes all the way to Paris Farmers Union,
Right.
except for those 3 lots on the other side
That
of the
sort of
street.
stick out, yeah.
And I have no idea why things were designed that way, but they were. And the whole thing is served by public sewer and public water. And it's a growth area. In the future, and we really need to discuss this, the new comp plan eliminates the mixed-use district. If you look at the map,
It's not there.
it's not there, okay? Instead, on 117, the pink there, that used to be, so the pink is the inner corridor, or it looks pink to me, let's put it that way. And the pink on the south has always been there as inner corridor. The pink on the north has been mixed-use corridor on 117. So the proposal in the comp plan is to convert that mixed-use corridor, which goes from, well, it ends at Middle Ridge Road and goes to, hard to tell on this map, but it looks like it comes down to probably a little bit, a few lots after the affordable housing development on Harrison Road. So it's not very long. And the thought there was that part of 117 is not a lot different than the 302 inner corridor. I mean, there's a little bit more open space, but it's got the lumber place.
Yep.
It's got some home businesses. It's got the pull-out.
It doesn't include
It's got
that, actually.
some condos. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, it's got a hydraulic grade that I don't think the water district can pump to at this time.
So you don't think that'll ever
I
have
can't
public
say
water?
ever, we're looking for more water, but right now, that's a good size uphill lift.
Okay. So,
So that's gonna be a limiting
Oh, yeah,
factor,
it does include that.
unless these people wanna fork over a couple million for a pump station.
yeah, well, okay. Okay, that's good information. But assuming that's followed through, what it would mean is it becomes part of the inner corridor, it becomes a growth area. But it becomes a growth area without public water or public sewer. So how much do you know about sewer? Would the sewer also have to be pumped up there, or no? No, it flows downhill.
Sewer flows, yes. Sewer flows downhill, unless you have to
Yeah, I
get it
realized
over
what I was
another
saying
hill, in which
just as I
case you
said
need a
it.
force main.
Yeah. So, so I guess the question is, so right now, the mixed-use corridor on one is 80,000 square feet. And there's no conflict with the law at this time. It could remain as is. If the comp plan passes, one option is that portion, if the comp plan passes and if the map is followed as it's shown in the comp plan, then essentially you would need to change the lot size to 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit. That assumes that as the comp plan is worked through and applied to the land use, that portion of the map will be followed. So the question is, and I know Ashley and I have talked about this quite a bit, the question is, do you want to change that now or not? Or now meaning, not like immediately, but in this phase, in the housing phase, as opposed to in the comp plan phase. So the argument for it is kill two birds with one stone. The argument against it is be careful not to put things, it would be a separate warrant issue because it's not required by the housing law at all. So the argument, it would have to be a separate warrant. Well, I would advise it's a separate warrant article if we were to do it, because it's not required by the laws. The argument against it is it's not required. So the chances are that district is going to change and become a different district, be my guess.
I'd sort of like to wait until we have a really good handle on what our water capacity will be as we're looking, as the district is actively looking, and what our actual sewer capacity is at this point. How much growth can we actually take on without overstretching or having to go for an expansion? All of those things, given how close we just got a few years ago to flipping the switch on the wastewater, coming back to people for an expansion, I think is going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, so I think, so the law will, if it becomes a growth area, but without public water or public sewer, okay?
Yeah.
Which today, if today we changed it and said it's the inner corridor, it would be a growth area without public water and public sewer. The law requires 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit. If it were to have public water and public sewer, then it goes to 5,000. So we definitely want that information for the future, but, my question is, and we don't have to decide today, but that's what's on the table, is if there's opportunities to do something now versus later. When I say now, I mean with the housing legislation, while we look at housing legislation changes. So by June of next year. I don't mean, so there's time to think about that. But you got to balance doing what's minimally required so that when it goes to the voters know that that's what we've done. We're not throwing other stuff in there, so to speak, that could potentially, kill the whole thing. Against, if it's a separate warrant article and it's simple enough and it makes sense, then should we do it?
I think the question is more, what do we want that to look like and how it actually functions? And the recommendation here for lot sizes in that district is to create tiered lot sizes based on infrastructure access. So if that becomes one district, where it's now two, I do think that makes sense, and maybe you could put something in there about, when this, I don't know the legal language.
Say again.
When and if there is public water and sewer, how that would change that.
How much capacity is left for the sewer? I'm looking at you, Kathy.
I don't know.
You
I've
don't-
not
does
been able to
anybody
get a
know?
straight answer. I've asked
shouldn't that
two
be
of our prior planners to gather this information, and I haven't didn't get a straight answer. So we've got a new public works person. It's time to get some answers.
My understanding is we don't have enough right now.
That's my understanding too.
So
You
So-
don't have enough users, right?
we don't have enough.
Users, right.
Yeah, you have plenty of capacity, not enough users.
Sorry. We don't have
Right.
enough waste.
I understand there's plenty of capacity, now what that means to me is
Yeah.
different things to people.
Right, numbers are really helpful here.
Yeah. I feel like those should exist and be public information.
I feel
No?
it exists.
Is that controversial? I don't
So-
know.
Yeah, no, I can tell you on the water side what we can produce on a good day.
I kind of like Maggie's idea if I'm understanding, because like I said, I can hear half of what you said.
Sorry.
Yeah, you guys need to speak up, please.
This is a big
I have to leave
room.
in a few minutes anyway, so you
Not a
don't
lot
have
of
to worry about me here. So like on our use tape, well, on our dimensional standards, we have, you know, like some places, like what we use, for example, you know, it says if it's in shoreline zone, 50,000 square feet
Right.
approximated, we could put something like that in there. I think that if, you know, there's some pretty good changes coming along, and to do it all kind of at the same time, I think is good, versus, you know, if we can put the term in there, if it has public sewer.
Well, I think what we could do is do something like, that would just follow the law, okay? Not more than the law, would follow the law. And I think we're probably gonna end up doing this anyway, because some districts are really like
Yeah.
half and half or whatever, a quarter half, is you either have, you know, two-dimensional tables for lot size, one that says access to public water and public sewer, and then you have the lot sizes for each district, and then you have no access to public water and public sewer, and you have, and that would work. The growth areas are the growth areas, so you don't really need to split, you don't really need to say if it's a growth area. We know what they are, so.
You do. I think it's important that the public knows what the growth areas are.
Okay.
Well, that's just me, because
I would
when
agree
you're
with
looking
you,
at
by the
this
way,
and you're
Brenda.
saying, oh, it's in the growth area, and well, which one? You know, I think it's important that that's.
So we could put, that could be a heading at the top of the table. Could just
I
say,
think it's important.
it just really helps people understand growth area, growth area, growth area.
Can I make a ordinance design request when, and I don't, again, I feel like we can make it user-friendly and how we want to do it, like that feels like a choice, not a rule to not have to do that. But like a table and a map on the same page so people can, or like back to back, I don't know. I think just as we're doing all of this is like down the line, whoever is actually writing the edits, like, can we,
Ashley can chime in, but her and I have talked about the user friendliness and how we can condense this a little bit too. We've had a lot of conversation, it's something that we really want to do. I mean, you know, this right, in my opinion, the ordinance is made for people that have been in municipality, been on a board, but it's not made for people like.
yeah.
Yeah, or you have a law
Yeah.
degree, correct.
I don't have a law
So,
degree.
you know, to make it more user-friendly for the public, I mean, I don't hand out this ordinance ever. I take pages that they need and I circle what, and highlight and explain that, but I don't hand them this whole 200-page document and say, here you go, but no. I'm like, okay, go to this
Just, like,
page,
put
look
that
at
under my
this,
pillow.
and this is what it means, you know. It really is intense for somebody that has never read an ordinance before, trying to figure out what they can do with the property.
I think, just again, as we're doing all of this work, if we can, my request would be that any edits and changes that we have to do and like major revisions are done through a lens of accessibility for, and like,
Right,
understanding for the public.
So I think you can do both. I think you can do what the,
I don't know, she just.
I know, but I'm not a lawyer.
No,
is Ashley still there?
yeah, she's on.
She said, definitely, I think after we go through this process with the housing changes, it would be good for us to look into a way to do more extensive land use planning and updating to the code to be more user community friendly.
Yeah, so it really depends on how much heavy lifting we want to do and who can help us. So, you could make both work. You can still do what's minimally required by the law. The law is requiring us to change lot sizes and density. We can do that, and in growth areas, you know, different depending on whether it's growth area and whether it's got public sewer and public water. We can do that at the same time, and I don't even know that it needs to go on the warrant, article, but I'd have to check, you could make it more user-friendly, okay? So maybe you modify the tables to be easier to read. Maybe you have the maps right behind the tables instead of at the end of the document. I don't think those changes are not substantive changes. You know, I don't think, because you're just moving things around. You're not dictating something different. But, you know, my sort of, so I think we could possibly do both. We could check with the attorney on that. My concern is making requirements that are above and beyond, building requirements into this or building standards into this or whatever it is, changing standards, whether it's more restrictive or looser. My concern is that to be careful that, I hate to use this phrase, but I guess I'll use it, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we don't want the public to vote down changes that have to happen because there's something that's been added on that they don't like. And that's why so I think what you're talking about, Jessica, to me, those are necessary things that go with the housing changes. To me, you're saying in a certain district, the mitigation is sloped roofs and maybe height, okay? Those I could go to Mark and say, listen, the changes we've made in here are for Mark or whoever. The changes we made in here are to make sure we follow the new housing laws, and there's items where that required us to change other things in terms of design. And that you could leave it at that. But then if we're talking about we're going to change a lot size now even though we don't need to, that again, I would put that on a separate warrant article. And I would just be careful not to have too many of those because it's you know, I liken it to LD 2003 where we kind of stuck to a roadmap. But I understand we could, if there's things, if we can kill two birds with one stone, that's great. So, you know, in this area, the question is, so let's just assume there'll never be public sewer or public water out there. If we make that assumption, we can build the chart so that if it happens, like Maggie says, it'll be there. But as of now, it's not. So if and when it becomes the inner quarter, which is the policy proposed in the comp plan, it will go down to 10,000 square feet. So the question is, you want to do that now? Or you want to do that as part of the comp plan process? Or when I say you, I mean we, the town, everybody. Kevin? You have to go to the mic, sorry.
Yep. Kevin Radian. The lesson, I guess, from 2003, LD 2003, we got advice from several different sources, I think, to say, keep your mind on the goal. And I think it both came from the attorney and from the community affairs to do what you had to do to make sure that passed by the deadline it was supposed to pass, and not to be confusing and or to mix that with other concerns that might get opposition, and somebody writes no for this, they'll write no for the bigger issue. So it was a suggestion last time to stay one issue, stay focused, get it passed, meet the July 1st, in this case 2027 deadline, and then go beyond that afterwards. So I just want to remind that was there from.
I just said, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. It's not Sam. It's not select board. Sir, keep it simple, sir. Well,
Nice.
sorry.
Okay. All right, so let's just consider that, all right? So we're going to have to make a decision at some point. Doesn't have to be now, but
Right.
we're going to have to make that decision. Moving on down to lot size. We just kind of talked about that. If it becomes the inner quarter, it will have to decrease. And so the comment in here is, should we create tiered lot sizes based on infrastructure access? I think we can make a table, like Maggie said, and Brenda said, that just splits. Use one if you have public water and public sewer, and use the other if you don't. Any comments on intent alignment? Okay. On to accessory dwelling units. There's really no major change that the law is forcing us to do, other than the law has made sprinkler requirements now for ADUs under certain situations. So that has to be built into the building code section of the code has the ADU requirements. And I don't remember, but it was something like if you had more than X number of rooms or something like that. Okay, any questions on that? And subdivision, we've mainly talked about, so you can just take a look at it, see if you have any questions. So again, you'll see in the questions later that I've put forward to the Housing Opportunity Program. I want them to clarify some things for us. And I assume legal will do the same. So we're one of the, well, right, so far we're the only town I've found. Now, there's other differences, but we're the only town I've found that doesn't follow the district zoning in subdivision. So if we did, for instance, you couldn't have a 1 acre lot in the rural neighborhood. And I'm not saying we should change that. I'm just saying we're different. And when the code was going back in history, when the first land use was done, legal wanted to change that and told us we had to follow the districts, and we said we didn't want to because we really thought it would get rejected. And so that wasn't changed. But I don't know with the new housing laws if that, especially if the lot sizes are smaller, it's probably it may force a change. Otherwise, municipalities could basically encourage the creation of subdivisions to get around the density laws. You just build big subdivisions with 1 acre lots. Because in some districts now, it's 5,000 square feet per lot. Now, those have public sewer and water, but in others, it's 10,000 square feet for a lot, which currently is 80,000 square feet for a lot. So, it's not a lot of others. So anyway, that's just a question. Any questions on that?
Yep, I have a comment on that. I believe before it went to 80,000 square feet for a lot, it used to be 40. So before in the rural areas, the areas that are now rural, you could split a lot every 5 years. You could make a 40,000 square foot lot, then it went to 80. So I think that was why it stayed at 40, because there was a lot of talk when that was happening that it might get voted down.
Right.
So you could go to subdivision and maintain that 40,000 square foot lot instead of the 80.
Right, right. I mean, exactly. So before 2019, we had no zoning. So this all happened in 2019. And it did come up again, I think, when we consolidated the code. Legal did build some guardrails in there that follow the districts in subdivision, but lot size and frontage, they didn't change. Okay. Any questions on any of that?
Are we going to address central water and central sewer, or is that later on?
We're going to
Definitions?
get to that next.
Okay.
And then there's the changes in review authority, which we've pretty much talked about. And then there's questions. And these questions, what I would suggest is if you have questions, just add them to this list, or send them to me or Ashley, and we'll add them to the list. For instance, CEO does a review of 3 or 4 units in a building, and that triggers site plan. Are they going to have to follow the site plan ordinance? I think the law says yes. So that needs to be clear.
Right.
And then the subdivision items. Anything else?
What's our next step with this, in this process?
Well, the next step was to have tables just like this for the other districts. And to see, to talk with GPCOG and see what's going to make sense, or, and again, I have questions there. I think once we've gone through all the districts, and maybe we can, if we get this in here sooner, so people can look at it more in advance, then I think we can at least start, write down a list of everything that has to change, and then maybe that's something that, I don't know if we go to legal at that time, or if we're working with GPCOG, tell them, here's what we see, what do you see, type of thing. Ashley, do you have any comments? Way out there in California? Let me ask you, Maggie, what would you like the next step to be?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know, I guess my question earlier was getting at how in-depth do we have to go in this if we're gonna get help? Because I don't wanna go through every little thing if they're gonna find all of those things. I think that's a great use of their skills and resources, and maybe less so my time. I think they would do a very thorough job. I trust planners. So I think my desire would be, we're making the decisions at the level of the comp plan leading the vision, the community leading the vision, and then how far we want to go in these changes. And I think we've decided, sounds like, stick to the housing for this, right? Just make those changes and maybe identify along the way, like, where there's opportunities. If, we're gonna know if the comp plan passes here pretty soon, and like where
Where there's
additional changes.
opportunities for
But I think-
other things.
Like, my desire is to stay at the level of, this is the impact to the
Okay.
place,
Well, we'll-
as opposed to like.
We will do the next few
Every
tables,
little-
which, believe me, it's gonna get more complicated than this, but,
So I guess, and I don't know what the timeline is, and talking to GPCOG, and I don't know if there's other
well, they
planning
would start in
consultants.
July.
But I just mean like making that decision and how that decision is made and the funding and all of that.
Yeah.
However that all works out. But I guess
Okay.
I don't want to like do all the work and then decide that
Got
they're gonna, if that makes sense.
Got it. Anybody else? My one thing with this is, I don't think we can hand it off to them and then get it back in November. I just don't think.
Yeah, maybe.
I think there's gonna have to be a very high level of whoever it is, whether it's GPCOG, the lawyers. There was a lot of interaction with the attorneys when we did the consolidation. And there was a lot of interaction with them when we did LD 2003. And we're gonna have to have a lot of interaction. Somebody's gonna have to interact with GPCOG. Because my experience, and maybe was just a thing that happened, or maybe it's our code is too complicated, but they have planners on staff. When they did an analysis of the 3 lots, 4 that could have affordable housing on them that the town owns, I'll just say there wasn't enough check back with even the town office. And so what was delivered, although nothing's moved forward on that, what was delivered
Yeah, I mean,
was
that's a bigger
wrong.
problem.
So I'm only saying, I'm not disagreeing with you,
Yes,
I'm just saying
And I
somebody's time is
lawyers,
gonna be used.
yes, are
with it.
important. This is a legal document, and I think as a community and as a board, like, getting it right and demanding that it works is
Yeah.
really important. And I understand that it needs to work legally, but like, that we're getting the outcomes that
Yeah.
the community is
I-
desiring.
All I'm saying is we can't just be handed a product in November.
Yeah, and maybe there's a way, just like that to me is a process question of like, how do we create checkpoints?
And especially because I've seen what happened when that was done before, and
Yeah.
it was wrong. So,
I think-
I just, this is too important. So let me, Ashley and I will talk some more about this and how we can work it out, and, I mean, you know this stuff too, Maggie, so if you want to join us, I don't have I don't have an objection
Not
to
my
that.
day job, unfortunately.
First, yeah, let's do
Fortunately.
Ashley, and then we'll get on to the next topic.
And she just said, I think whether we go with GPCOG or not, I will look into the other options for planning outside of legal.
Say that again?
So about things outside of legal.
Whether we go with GPCOG or not, I will look into other options for planning outside of legal.
Okay, good. Kevin?
A couple things. I don't think there's any particular, well, let's look at it the other way. Planning's not taught in law school. How's that for a simple statement? So I would put the lawyers last, as they should be reviewing for technical things, not telling us what the substance should be. Second, when we did the comp plan, whenever it was, that we interviewed consultants. There was an RFP put out. We had 4 consultants come in. GPCOG was one of them, and there were 3 others. The committee that reviewed and the staff here at that time rated one of the private ones, the one we picked, Barry Dunn, as the best. And that was, as I say, both staff and every single member of the committee. GP cog was not the cheapest, and it was not in second place, I will tell you that. And the similar thing happened in Naples. Naples had three consultants come in, and GP cog again was the most expensive. I believe they were the most expensive, and they did not get the award. Barry Dunn got the award again. So the quality of the interaction, I think, is important. And I think you all ought to feel comfortable with what you're getting and make sure it's ours rather than someone else's.
I just want us to own it. I don't want GP cog to own it or any other consultant to own it.
And I think, yeah, that's just like a fundamental trust thing of working with consultants and liking the people and again, like being firm in that we want our community's vision captured in this. Like, this is what we have to live with every day and work with every day. And I think the consultants that I know personally and land use planners, like, they are very good at their jobs and they stick to the technical stuff. They can offer advice and maybe like some best practices and all of that, but we get to decide.
We've had
Like, that's-
experience with, at least I've had experience with two of them thus far. And I think Barry Dunn did a nice job with the comp plan. So, okay, I think we're done for today. Not for today, but for, Mark's been sitting there patiently. So let's move on to the subdivision stuff, which is item number 5. And if we don't get to the STR stuff, that's not the end of the world. I would just ask you to read it, and if you have any major objections, please send them to me.
There's one problem with the SDR and defining emergency contact
Yeah.
person. One place it says 30 minutes, one
She
place
changed
it's
that.
60. Okay.
She did change that, but she changed it after she put that in there, so. Okay, so Eric and I met, as I mentioned, and we spoke about cluster housing, we spoke about sewer and central sewer. We came up with, and you see them written down here, and I've asked staff to provide Mark with this same proposal. So you've gotten that, right?
Yep.
And,
Thank you.
and then some other kind of general subdivision items to kind of jump to Kathy's question is, the state is going to require public water and public sewer and not allow comparable sewer for going down to 5,000 square feet. So we're thinking that should be changed in subdivision, but, we're holding off on that till we know more. To answer Kathy's question, we decided not to define central water and central sewer. And because we felt like, first of all, it might end up being in conflict with the state. And second of all, there are other ways to define the sewer that would work for higher density. And I've written them down here, just ideas. And third of all, I fear as soon as we define it, we're going to have a situation where it doesn't work or we want to change it. So that's kind of where we came out. And so in cluster housing, you can see what's written here. And I guess, do people have questions? Mark, did you want to say anything about this?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead now and do that?
Right.
So I went to the CDC meeting last week, and the question came up, why don't we have more cluster housing? So the short answer originally was, it's too difficult when you have to go through the approval process, once you build the infrastructure, to create any value. Okay, so that's why a lot of the existing frontage gets used up, because that infrastructure is already there. I had an initial conversation with Deb after I thought about it for a day, and saying, okay, maybe there's some ways to do it where you give a density bonus if you do a cluster, or maybe you get rid of net buildable land, the 40,000 square feet, do a yield plan. I think what you guys have done here for this draft, I think it's a great step in the right direction to incentivize applicants to go with a cluster development instead of taking 500 feet of road frontage and making the lots. I think you can justify building that infrastructure, maintaining the rural character that we hear about all the time at the planning board meetings. There's two things I think you need to add to that proposal. The first is to reduce the front yard setback. You know, if you're gonna have 20,000 square foot lots, you can't have 75-foot setbacks. That puts the house, back of the house, at least halfway back on the lot. Increases your impervious. Now you're gonna deal with more of the phosphorus. I think you go with 25 feet, 30 feet of setback from the road. The second thing I think you gotta think about is, I believe as I read the ordinance, there's a 20-unit limit, dwelling unit, without two accesses to a public way. So I mean, some of the densities you're talking about now, you know, if you're talking about going down to 5,000 square feet, or even if you're not, you can have 20 units pretty easy. And I think to say you have to have two entrances onto a public way is kind of contrary to maintaining the rural character. I think there's other ways to do it. You know, maybe it's some, you know, the wording should be some alternative that's acceptable for the fire chief. It could be additional water cisterns. It could be a lot of things. You could have a loop road. But I think that's something you have to look at, because right now it says, the way I
It's
read
two
it.
entrances if it's 1,000 feet
I
or
believe
more,
it's
or more than
I
1,000.
believe it's two units, 20-unit limit on dwelling units without two accesses to a public way.
Okay.
So I think that's something that was worthy of looking at, you know, with the cluster, if you really tried to incentivize development that will protect the rural character, not eat up all the road frontage.
Is that a safety issue?
I believe that's the basis for it is public safety. That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
let the chief, there's other alternatives to do it. I mean, you can have a roundabout in there. You know,
Yeah.
the theory is if a tree falls across the road, they can't get in. I mean, you could cut down all the trees too. It could fall across the road, but I don't think that's an alternative. But I believe that there's some alternatives that would be acceptable to the public safety that would allow you to, you know, eliminate that.
Yeah, and I think,
The big one is that you're reducing that setback to 25 feet or
Now,
or something less than 75
are you
feet.
talking, when you say 25 feet? Okay, so there's an internal drive going in.
Yeah,
Are you saying the 25 feet should be for the homes off of that internal drive?
Correct.
Okay.
instead of 75 feet.
Now, what about,
Could you still have?
okay, so I think that's, I
What's
think
that?
that's doable today without violating the code standards. I guess my other question is, so let's say the road comes in, and the back of the houses are facing the public road, because that 75 feet is from a public, it's a front setback from a public road. Would you still need 25 feet from the, 25 feet from the public road?
No, I think if you're trying to maintain rural character, you'd want to have that 75-foot.
So the back of the homes
Yeah,
would be 70, if it, I'm envisioning like you have a road coming in.
Yeah, no.
Right, and You got a row of homes on
So
one side.
regardless of the
And the back
side
of
of
the
the
homes
house.
is facing the public way, but those would be, the back of the homes would be 75 feet from the road. You could still have your septic within there, say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the private road, which is going in, could be 25
Right,
feet.
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The new infrastructure that you're gonna build, the setback from that new infrastructure could be less than 75 feet.
Yeah.
I think 25 feet is reasonable, that's enough for a car or two cars, if you put a double with driveway. That reduces your impervious, reduces your phosphorus export, drainage,
Stormwater.
Yeah,
stormwater.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm okay
Jessica?
with that, as long as you keep that 75 for the main road,
Yeah, I
regardless of
wasn't
the side of the
thinking-
house.
I wasn't thinking about that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but off of that road that you're building for the units, and especially if there was green space for the residents anyway,
Yeah,
they
it
don't
was a
need a
very
big
good
front
question
yard.
at the CDC meeting, why isn't it done? And, you know, I gave the quick answer, but as I thought about it, how could you incentivize it? And I think I might have said how you could incentivize it a little bit at that meeting, but as I thought about it more, and like I said, I think the draft that you have here is a real good step in the right direction to incentivize that type of development.
so, I think so I didn't realize it was 20 units. I thought it was by feet, but.
I believe it is. I went over this with Jim Seymour today. We took a quick look at it and came up with some, that was his comment. I think
1,000 feet would be, road would be 20 units at 100-foot frontage.
Yeah, you have to get back the first 75 feet first, right, before you can start having any houses, so you're gonna eat up that first 75, so.
Well, and then, but the other thing that's required in subdivision to follow although there's a way to do this without doing that, is that you need to have 100 feet of frontage for the lots that are created. And I'm just thinking that might, I wonder if that would need to change. So if you do it like it's all one lot and you're putting the houses in that one lot, then you don't need that.
Yeah, then it's like a condo.
Yeah, then it's, or whatever, some kind of planned unit
PUD
thing.
or-
That's a cluster
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
But if you have individual lots, it specifies 100 feet frontage, and honestly, I think if you're doing a cluster home, that cluster housing, that might be, I don't know, it might be too much. What do you think?
I'm not sure I understand the question. When I think of the cluster, I'm thinking that's individual 20,000 square foot lots owned by the homeowner, not an association, not a condominium.
Okay, so right now, the code says that if it's individual lots, they have to have, well, wait a minute, though. They have to have 100-foot frontage, but I think if it's cluster homes, we're allowed to reduce that frontage, so just like, so I want to be sure of that, because that's the way to do it
Right, but
without.
the challenge becomes, if there's still gonna be individual lots, if you go less than 100 feet, you're reducing your building envelope unless you reduce your side setbacks as well.
Right, I'm thinking the option needs to be there depending on how it's done.
Well,
You know,
have the
like what
option-
if it's something that goes around a circle, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you have the option to do it as a condo. I mean, I think that would be, I'm not sure how you calculate the density, if it's still based on a 20,000 square foot per dwelling unit.
Yeah. Let me,
I'm just thinking of it in the context of 20,000 square foot individual lots.
yep. Let me just find the cluster housing section here. I was right on it, and then I scrolled right by it. Condos, come on. Cluster. Okay, density requirements.
So if you did a condo, would the density requirement still be the 20,000 square feet net buildable land per dwelling unit?
Yeah.
But at that point, you eliminate all setbacks. There's no lot line, so you can
Yeah.
build it in a smaller area.
All right, I think. What's the board, I mean, to me, this is all doable.
I don't know, could we drag the whiteboard over and draw pictures so that we all have a visual of what we're talking
Sure.
about here?
Yeah, drag it out, let's drag it over. The two entrances thing, I think,
I think you can address that by saying, or some other alternative
Yeah.
acceptable to the
yeah,
public safety.
I tend to agree.
I think,
And this was probably put in here, I mean, that section hasn't changed in the 10 years I've been on the planning board, so. My guess is it's been in there for 20 years.
I think the only thing with that I'm thinking about, and this just gets at like the future, is thinking about depending on where these developments are and how they're oriented and where the streets are, like how in the future could they connect to like be through streets instead of like we're just creating these like dead end subdivisions. And I'm thinking towards like, you know, if we actually want to reduce sprawl and like growth is happening in a smart way, that you're creating spaces that can be connected
You-
and like
you could-
following like a
Yeah.
more traditional New England.
But even if it was a dead-end road, you could probably design it so
Well,
that
yeah.
if there was another development next to it and the developer or developers wanted to connect the two, it could be done.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't change that. It's just something that I'm.
Yeah.
Will people want
Thinking
lower
about-
I think
frontage if their
Mark's
house
saying
becomes a main road?
there's ways
Yeah.
it could be done.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with Maggie on that. I don't think there's anything wrong with cul-de-sac. It doesn't necessarily go through, because I can tell you the people that live on that cul-de-sac they're gonna be in here all squawking. If someone comes in and says, oh, I want to extend this and connect it to another road, because you're gonna think about a lot more traffic, that goes down that road. And I think also with a cluster, you're probably going to have dedicated green space that's gonna be out around the perimeter, which may preclude you from going through it in the future.
Doesn't some of the ways they get around the two access is having a medium in the entranceway
Yep.
and having basically two entrances at the main highway?
Yeah, they do. I'm not sure.
I
not
know
sure
that's
how
what they do in
practical
a lot of places to satisfy that requirement,
Yeah.
having two ways of egress
Yeah,
into the
no,
subdivision.
you're correct. I don't know as a practical matter how effective that is, but I guess it gives you two
Well,
entrances.
the fire chief will tell you that if there's an accident out in the front of the road, they can get in
Mm-hmm,
because of the separate entrance.
okay,
That's why they do it that way.
yeah.
So I think we should have the fire chief and the emergency
Yeah.
departments comment
Yeah.
on this. It does say here it says 20 units or more must have at least two connections with existing public roads, blah, 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 unless the planning board finds that this standard would not substantially promote increased emergency vehicle access or traffic safety. So
You've got it
Man,
in
that's
there.
just why I'm saying if there's two entrances,
Split, you mean, one
it's
is,
split, there's a medium that says,
yeah.
Deb's Way.
Deb's way in and Mark's way out?
Yeah, I've also seen it where, to get around the cul-de-sac, the length of a road, that when you get near that, maximum, they do exactly what you're saying. They put an island in the middle, so if you have to go,
Go around it, it's treated
not
as
a
a-
roundabout, but just an island in the middle, so one
it's
lane
being
goes.
treated as a separate way, a new way
Yeah.
being created by the
Yeah.
circle.
All right.
What are we drawing, Kathy?
Well, you're on a public road.
Is that the scale?
Yeah, that's the scale.
Hopefully your pen won't run out by the time.
So, you have a visual in your head of a cluster development.
Sure. Not a very good drawing.
Doesn't
And
matter.
this won't be the scale either. So, if this is 10 acres and you have, let's say, based on what you guys are doing, there's 8 acres of upland, right? So based on what your proposal is, you could have 16 units at 20, roughly 16, I'm gonna say 2 per acre, it might be a little more than that. So, let's say this is your 75-foot setback. So your road comes in here, and if your wetlands are back out like this, maybe your road comes in like this. That's
Good
not
enough.
that great, but, and then your lots go like this, like that, and you have some green,
Green space all
you
the
got
way
green
around.
space all the way around it. I mean, that saves, all your road frontage. You can maintain a nice buffer here. And by doing that, this 8 acre piece, which might be 8 lots with 40,000 square feet of that buildable land, now gives you 16. With the additional density, you can justify building this infrastructure and make the project economic.
Right, yeah, one water line.
Looks like a caterpillar.
That's right.
Looks like an Egyptian pharaoh leaning his head to
Yeah,
one side.
What?
Egyptian pharaoh.
I
So
see.
that 75-foot setback on the road,
Yeah.
which right now you'd need the 25-foot buffer, right, within that, and then you need the 25-foot perimeter buffer, of which, we'd have to look at what the rules say about that, right?
Setbacks from wetland.
Well, I can't remember if the rules say, well, I can look right now, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, that's all open space, that's all green space, so I mean, that all could be classified as buffer.
Well, if this came before, it should be a pretty simple approval, I think.
It'd be a pretty what?
Simple approval.
Really? So I don't have to spend all that money on engineering?
No.
I can just draw it on a whiteboard?
We do have to change, just do.
Yeah.
No, I can visualize it.
You
now. can create a pedestrian pathway in the buffer. So you just can't have buildings or structures. So theoretically, if there's wetlands in the back there, and now I'm gonna draw, and I don't think I'm a lot better than Mark.
It won't be any worse.
Don't speak too soon. So this was the wetlands back
That's
here,
what one's
right?
back there, yes.
So you would be allowed to cut a 6-foot path through here. Okay, and this is your green space.
Yep.
But if you wanted to have, let's say this couldn't all be green space, maybe you wanted more woods around here. You could have common open area here, back, in some cases, not all cases, in areas that are not suitable for development, which I put in there. So, for instance, Middle Ridge that we just approved, there's that forestry cut through that goes out to the wetlands. I mean, we do live in Maine, and it's not necessarily going to be a resort. People are used to going into the woods, sitting on a bench, checking out the wetlands, whatever. It just has to be accessible, and it has to be for some type of recreational activity. It does not specify what kind of recreational
Just has to have
activity.
public
And I think it
access.
has to be sort of a light recreational. If you're going to build more than that, like basketball courts, then you got to add, there's more regs.
I think-
Basketball courts are impervious surface.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the other component of it, and a reason for incentivizing cluster development and setting aside, like having denser development and setting aside open space, is also connected wildlife
Yeah.
corridors, and those are mapped like we know,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I would, in this scenario, I would envision everything that's outside of that developed area would just remain in its natural state, wouldn't.
Okay. I'd say we talk to the people that are responsible for safety in this town about those two entrancing things. And in this proposal, it has the lot size proposal. It doesn't have the frontage proposal, but what it says is, and I believe the setback, so if we had to follow the code, if it's a private road, it's a common lot line, it's a 25-foot setback without having to change.
Sideline setbacks.
And the.
In the
what-
front?
And the front.
Okay, all right.
If it's a private road, okay, because we just had this come up with,
Yeah.
whatchamacallit, the one on Highland Ridge. But what this says, and it's kind of in an odd place, but in the cluster regs, the buildable area designated for a planned use, well, okay. Let me go back. Oh, no, that's a typo. May be reduced from the minimum lot size and lot frontage in V7K if the project complies with density requirements and the area outside the buildable area is dedicated as one or more common open space areas. So, I just found it. So, that basically says, it leaves it open, it just doesn't, as I say in the first number one there, it's in the regs that we can lower the lot size and the frontage, but it doesn't say how much, it doesn't say how much common area, and I think we need to say something, otherwise we'll all be talking at the table with the developer about, should it be this, should it be that? And proposal's 20,000 square feet. I mean, I've seen some that look nice that are smaller than that, but we could start there. If we were to change this, we have to check with the lawyer, but I think this only changes in the subdivision regs if we don't have to change that setback from the common lot line. And that means the board can make those changes after a public hearing.
If you're doing individual lots, I really think, as a practical matter, if you're not doing a condo, if you're just doing individual house lots, I think you gotta go with 100 feet of frontage just to meet the 25-foot setbacks. That gives you a 50-foot building envelope, which is, kind of tight, but I mean, you can make it work. I mean, to reduce the frontage lower than that, unless you have odd-shaped lots that, like some of those.
It could be reduced, but maybe doesn't, in other words, it could be reduced to a certain amount, and, if you want it to be more, fine, it wouldn't be I'm just thinking of,
If you do a condo, then that conversation is off the table. Then you don't really have any setbacks
Right.
from one unit to the other.
just something to think about.
Yeah.
Because it gives the option that it doesn't have to be 100 feet. We could leave it open too and just change the lot size to 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, if you do that, you're reducing your building envelope, but you may be turning houses sideways if you have an individual lot. And
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's maybe not the best thing to do.
The look that you're trying to get.
Yeah, it also, I mean, to your point, again, we are in Maine and not in Florida, and people do like a little bit of separation from their neighbor, but I would just say that, and I'll be happy to send it to you and the board members. Where my mother lives in Florida, which is kind of a planned unit development, it's an association, but there's essentially like 5 or 6 associations in one like very large, large area with a lot of common space and man-made lakes
Yeah.
as stormwater, which have fish in them and everything. Those homes, so you have some homes that are close to the mangroves that lead out to Tampa Bay that are huge, right? And then you have another area that's townhouses, another area that's homes with carports, that's different kind of structure in terms of the way it's built and smaller. The area where my mother lives are homes with 2-car garages that are like 1,600 square feet. The thing that's so, and there's a lot of space for walking. It's right outside the town, but you'd never know it. But the thing that's different than what you see here generally is, except for downtown, is the lot sizes are about 7,500 square feet, and your fence in your yard is like right next to the other person's house. So the homes are maybe 20 feet apart. But I have to tell you that it's amazing how well it works, and it's actually got something. They've got homes from 250,000 to townhomes to over $1 million, all in the same area.
There's a way to do it to make it look nice and
Yeah.
presentable. They do it in other parts of the world all over.
I mean, we did it at the cottages
Yeah.
on South High Street, and that was very similar.
So I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that these can be very attractive. A company maybe everybody wants to go look at is Patco, the people that built the food pantry. They have a section in there they have preset house plans, but they have a section in there called communities, and those are definitely cluster homes. And some of them are in like Wells, which has a lot just I forget where the others are, maybe Scarborough. They're pretty nice from the looks of it. So anyway, just to...
Yeah, I think, and I said this to the board before, I think cluster is a very good alternative, and I think that should be something that's looked at more often. And I think this will incentivize applicants to say, okay, this is a viable alternative.
So how does the board feel about going forward with this proposal I think we can double check the setback thing, but I think that's going to be allowed, and then we can talk to the people responsible for safety about the road.
Why not?
All right. So we'll do, what about the other things in there? I suggested for common open space between, in a lot of the other subdivisions, it's 20,000 square feet for one, and for the house lot, and 20,000 square feet for the open space. Is that what we want to do, or do you want to think about it? We can think about it. It could be less. I mean, it kind of depends on the area to me. Also, there's some towns that instead of coming up with a number, they say if you have this many houses, it has to be 20% of the total land. And if you have this many houses, it has to be 30% or 35% of the total land. Do you have any feeling about that?
No, I think there's a lot of different options you
Okay.
could pursue with that.
Okay. The 20,000 square feet kind of makes sense because you can get septic and well on it.
Right, and
generally.
it's the same, I mean, you could, the state regs allow mobile homes on 20,000 square
Okay.
feet. So I mean, it kind of makes, in a lot of other communities, the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet.
Yep.
Through subdivision. And I think that is done intentionally to mirror the requirements that are set forth by the state for mobile homes.
All right, well, let's go forward with it. Get to the chief. I recommend go to the Patco site. And if you want to see the place I'm talking about in Florida, it's called Placido Bayou, and it's in St. Petersburg, Florida.
I think what you were describing, just to put it into words, and we see this in the natural world, then resilient places are inherently diverse, and that is in form, in function, in economic.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Structure, and so when thinking about building neighborhoods, the same holds true.
It's
Like,
a
we are
really, you know,
animals, we need habitat that
I've
is diverse.
I like where I am. I like being surrounded by the woods, but I'm amazed at how well that area works between, and whoever figured out that the stormwater ought to be man-made ponds that connect to Tampa Bay, and then connected all those ponds. And I mean, they have fish, they have otter, they have all kinds of water birds and everything. And when St. Petersburg had the hurricane that flooded out the area, that place was the only place that didn't flood. And it was surrounded by destruction because those little ponds and lakes acted like bladders that just filled up, went to the top, went back down. Maybe there was a little spillover. So it's worth looking it up because I'm not saying it would happen here, but you never know. Somebody might own 100 acres and decide to bury something like that in the woods.
I'll also just say places built to the human scale are, when you're walking around or when you're like driving through a place, think about how you feel when you are driving through a place where the scale is built for cars and trucks and other giant hurling pieces of metal versus like you as an individual human. And I think that's something to keep in mind with this too, is like street design standards. I don't think we have those, but again, in thinking about
No, we don't have street design standards.
creating places
We do have street designs.
for the future and for
subdivision
people
roads, yeah.
versus cars. That's
Yeah.
important to me. I know, and
No, I hear you.
it's important.
Check it out. Check out the Patco site and check out Placido Bayou.
Wasn't,
The Placido Bayou, you have to Google it and you maybe get some maps that show the layouts.
Was the Napa Patco too? The Napa building.
Yes, the Napa building was Patco.
Also Google traditional development patterns versus suburban.
Versus the what?
Suburban.
Oh, suburban. Well, sometimes they can be right next to the downtown, but you'd never know it. Can walk to the grocery store.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yep. I can walk right to the Whole Foods from my mother's if I want to. Or ride a bike or whatever. All right, on the STRs, do you want to just, if you could all please read that and get back to me
I
within a
got
week?
one other thing on the SDRs.
Oh, go ahead then.
Where we talk about noise,
Yeah.
can we put the noise standards, we already have it in our,
In the site plan, put them in,
put it in the actual numbers
yeah.
so people know exactly what they are. Because people
Okay.
can go on the phone and say,
It's a great idea.
I think that could be done.
I haven't seen it, but how is it formatted? Is it formatted the way the ORC would do it?
I think it's very similar.
Is it user-friendly?
I would say it's very user-friendly.
I would be a user and I went through it with that in mind,
Okay.
yeah.
I would
Just haven't
say,
seen it, I just, one thing.
I'll be happy to
Yeah.
send the draft to you. I would say that it's user-friendly. It's not as detailed as some of the things we define. I did speak with Brenda about that. She wants to see how it goes. She wants to be able to make it generally fairly straightforward for her to register and not get it to the point where she's trying to interpret and reinterpret. So she's probably written it a little bit more, open-ended's the wrong word, but,
Flexible.
a little bit more, general, I would say.
I liked the addition of a good neighbor. I don't know what the word was used in it.
I can't
Policy or
remember.
good
She
neighbor?
put that in there, right?
Yeah.
Yep, she's last page. Yep.
Yeah, so she did pull some things from the Casco one. So I don't want to lose Rolf's thing, which is to add,
And I think and this feels like something that could be done outside of the ordinance, but it could be made prettier so that it can be
Posted.
posted in an Airbnb and somebody would actually want
You
to
use a terminology like more attractive.
read it.
I'm sure it
Just a
can be
little
prettier.
zhuzhing up for
mean,
the
this is-
final
You want some
thing
clip
that
art?
yeah, I don't know. It's great though. I was really happy to see that included.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah,
even
I mean,
thinking
it goes purpose, authority, applicability, definitions,
Wasn't surprised.
I'd put this in the binder.
registration requirements,
I mean, it's
operational standards,
Have too much.
violation and enforcement, appeal, before violations and enforcement, fees, violation and enforcement, appeals, severability, conflicts with other ordinances. Then it has an application form, which depending on your computer may show up with some wacky things on it, although it's not doing it here. And then it has the good neighbor sheet from Casco. So, I mean, I think it's pretty good. I'd be happy to send it to you. But she followed a pretty standard,
Sign
Oh.
that, right?
yeah.
Mark
Is
didn't
Mark
take,
supposed to take those?
actually Jane will take that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna,
And that one, that's going to Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and text this to you, Kevin. I don't know if it'll work.
There's a physical one here too. For him.
So anything else? I'll ask Brenda about adding the noise part. What are you laughing about over there?
I was just formatting.
You want it to be prettier. It'll, you can,
I'm not gonna. I don't. It's just an opportunity if somebody
Pleasing to the eye.
wants to.
my guess is
I'm
when
not
it's,
gonna,
when it's transmitted
require.
into an official ordinance,
Yeah.
it will be in Courier font, size 12. And we can put a little frame around the good neighbor policy.
Yeah.
Or you know what, some really, Airbnb
How about we
person
adjourn?
that's making $1 million can do something. Yeah, I think we should adjourn. Move to adjourn by Mr. Madison, I think that's his name, seconded by Kathy. All in favor?